The atmosphere backstage at the highly anticipated Logan fashion show was supposed to be one of electric excitement and triumphant vindication. Hope Logan Spencer had made the agonizing, life-altering decision to defect from Forrester Creations, leaving behind the legacy of her family to forge a new bold path under the banner of the newly minted Hope by Logan brand. The air was thick with the scent of hairspray, expensive perfume, and the palpable, vibrating tension of a surprise, expedited launch designed specifically to blindside the fashion industry. Hope had gambled absolutely everything on this singular moment, carrying the immense, suffocating weight of her mother, Brooke Logan Forrester's impending heartbreak, and the furious, unyielding wrath of the entire Forrester dynasty. Yet, as the countdown clock to the global livestream mercilessly ticked away, the thrill of her newfound independence was about to be violently shattered by a horrifying discovery that would plunge her into a waking psychological nightmare. Seeking a fleeting moment of solitude to compose her racing thoughts and manage her crushing internal guilt, Hope retreated to the primary VIP dressing room. She desperately needed to breathe, to mentally prepare for the aggressive barrage of press questions and the inevitable, volcanic backlash from Steffy Forrester Finnegan and Ridge Forrester that awaited her after the curtain fell. She turned the heavy brass doorknob, expecting to find the serene, meticulously organized sanctuary where Deke Sharp's brilliant, show-stopping designs were carefully hung, steamed, and prepped for the runway. Instead, the scene that greeted her was one of absolute, chilling devastation. The door swung open to reveal a massacre of silk, chiffon, and meticulously crafted fabrics, transforming a room of high fashion into a grotesque, terrifying crime scene of corporate sabotage. Hope's breath hitched violently in her throat, her eyes widening in sheer, unadulterated terror as she took in the catastrophic damage. Deke Sharp's masterpiece collection, the very foundation of her new brand and the undeniable proof of Katie Logan's strategic genius, had been brutally, methodically destroyed. The garments were not merely torn or slightly damaged. They had been viciously slashed to ribbons with a pair of heavy, industrial fabric scissors that now lay discarded on the polished hardwood floor like a discarded murder weapon. The vibrant colors, the intricate beading, and the innovative silhouettes that were meant to revolutionize the industry and completely eclipse Eric Forrester's highly anticipated haute couture return were reduced to a tragic, chaotic pile of shredded dreams. Hope fell to her knees, her trembling hands hovering over the ruined fabrics, entirely unable to comprehend the sheer, concentrated malice required to execute such a ruthless act of destruction. The physical destruction of the garments was catastrophic enough to threaten the entire Logan launch and invite financial ruin. But it was the psychological blow that truly brought Hope to her absolute breaking point. Every slashed seam felt like a direct, violent strike against her own soul and her fragile sense of security. She had known her defection would cause profound anger, perhaps even a permanent, irreparable fracture in her relationship with the Forrester family. But she had naively believed the battlefield would remain confined to sterile boardrooms, tense press conferences, and bitter family arguments. Seeing the visceral, tangible hatred manifested in the shredded remains of Deck's agonizingly hard work triggered a severe, paralyzing trauma response. The glamorous, brightly lit walls of the dressing room seemed to rapidly close in on her, the polished facade of the fashion world peeling away to reveal a dark, terrifying underbelly of vengeance that she was entirely unprepared to navigate. As Hope struggled to pull oxygen into her constricting lungs, a flash of bright crimson caught her tear-filled, frantic eyes. Scrawled across the massive, brightly lit vanity mirror in thick, blood-red lipstick was a chilling, unmistakable warning. Traitors have no place. The words dripped down the pristine glass like fresh wounds, mocking her fierce ambition and condemning her agonizing choices. Hope stared at the reflection of her own pale, horrified face framed perfectly by the vicious, blood-colored accusation. The word traitor echoed endlessly in her mind, a haunting, precise repetition of the exact sentiment she knew Steffy, Ridge, and Eric Forrester were currently harboring as they watched the media frenzy unfold. This was not a random act of vandalism committed by a careless intruder. It was a highly personal, deeply symbolic execution of her character, her loyalty, and her future in the industry. Panic, cold and absolute, seized Hope's entire being, freezing the blood in her veins. The digital live stream countdown clock on the wall monitor continued its relentless, unforgiving march toward zero, each ticking second amplifying the deafening roar of her escalating anxiety. Who could have possibly done this? The security at the Logan building was supposed to be impenetrable, heavily fortified especially on the day of a surprise, high-stakes launch. Hope's mind raced at a dizzying speed, scrolling through a terrifying, short list of suspects. Her thoughts immediately and instinctively snapped to Steffy Forrester Finnegan. Steffy had been absolutely livid, viewing Hope's secret contract as a calculated, malicious act of treason designed specifically to sabotage Eric's legacy. Steffy had the crystal clear motive, the endless financial resources, and the sheer, unyielding ruthlessness to order a strike this devastating and precise. Hope vividly remembered the arrogant smirk on Steffy's face during their last tense, manipulative meeting at Forrester Creations. The way Steffy had deceptively offered to relaunch Hope for the future as a trap to force her back into submission. Steffy had always been fiercely, violently protective of her family's empire, willing to cross any moral or ethical boundary to secure Forrester dominance and punish those who dared to challenge their supremacy. Could Steffy have personally slipped past the Logan security detail in the chaotic frenzy of the backstage preparations? Or had she hired a professional, a shadow operative to infiltrate the venue and send a permanent, terrifying message that Hope could never, ever escape the Forrester wrath? The horrifying image of Steffy wielding those heavy shears, her eyes burning with righteous, vindictive fury, flashed vividly in Hope's traumatized mind, making her physically nauseous and dizzy with fear. But as the initial, suffocating wave of panic crested, another, equally terrifying possibility emerged from the depths of her paranoia. What if it wasn't Steffy directly? What if the perpetrator was a fiercely loyal, fanatical Forrester Creations employee? The Forrester dynasty commanded absolute, unwavering devotion from its extensive staff, many of whom viewed Eric Forrester as a deity of the fashion world. Someone who deeply revered Eric and felt personally, deeply insulted by Logan's aggressive attempt to hijack the international media spotlight might have taken matters into their own dangerous hands. A rogue employee driven by a twisted, toxic sense of loyalty and a desperate desire to protect the upcoming haute couture event from financial ruin could have easily blended in with the frantic, overflowing backstage crew. This realization made Hope feel even more profoundly vulnerable. If the hatred for her had permeated the entire Forrester workforce, spreading like a virus, she would never truly be safe in Los Angeles again. The red lipstick warning on the mirror continued to burn into her retinas, searing itself into her memory. Traitors have no place. Hope had spent grueling weeks agonizing over her decision to defect, battling crushing, sleepless guilt, and desperate to prove that she could finally step out of the towering Forrester's shadow. She had leaned heavily on Liam Spencer's constant reassurances and Katie Logan's unwavering, fierce confidence. Yet, standing completely alone amidst the ruined, shredded fabric of her debut collection, she felt profoundly, terrifyingly isolated. Her mother, Brooke Logan Forrester, was already shattered by the lies and deception, viewing Hope's actions as an unforgivable betrayal of their family bond. Hope had willingly sacrificed her familial harmony for professional autonomy, and now, looking at the destruction, it seemed she was about to lose absolutely everything. The sabotage was a brutal, violent awakening to the fact that her actions had dark consequences far beyond what her optimistic heart had ever anticipated. With the global live stream scheduled to begin in mere minutes, the logistical nightmare of the situation began to compound her emotional breakdown, threatening to push her into a full-blown panic attack. How could they possibly proceed? Deke Sharp's absolute best work, the exquisite garments that were supposed to validate Katie's massive gamble and silence the critics, were completely destroyed. The ruthless fashion press was waiting with bated breath. The wealthy buyers were seated, expecting a spectacle. The entire world was watching, ready to judge the highly publicized, controversial Hope by Logan brand. Hope envisioned the catastrophic, career-ending humiliation of stepping onto the brightly lit stage empty-handed, forced to announce to millions that her highly anticipated launch had been successfully sabotaged. The impending financial ruin for Logan, the irreparable, permanent damage to her own reputation, and the victorious, cruel gloating of the Forrester family formed a suffocating, inescapable trinity of despair. The sheer, unadulterated cruelty of the act pushed Hope into a state of deep, lingering psychological trauma. This wasn't just about business shares, media attention, or corporate rivalry anymore. This was a visceral, violent manifestation of pure hatred. The Forrester family's resentment had rapidly evolved from standard boardroom bickering and passive-aggressive press comments into outright, dangerous psychological warfare. Hope realized with a sickening jolt that by defecting to Logan, she hadn't just changed employers. She had declared an all-out war on a powerful dynasty that operated by its own ruthless, unforgiving set of rules. The horrifying realization that she was entirely, woefully unprepared for this level of viciousness left her paralyzed, her breath coming in short, panicked gasps as she stared blankly at the shredded fabric covering the floor. In her moment of absolute, blinding terror, Hope desperately needed an anchor to keep her from completely floating away into the panic. She needed Liam's protective, grounding embrace, his logical, steady mind to help her navigate the immediate crisis. She needed Katie's fierce, strategic resilience to figure out a rapid contingency plan and manage the waiting press. But she was entirely alone in the dressing room, trapped in a gilded cage with the physical, damning evidence of her own perceived betrayal. The heavy silence in the room contrasted sharply with the muffled, frantic sounds of the production crew outside, amplified her feeling of total, devastating abandonment. She was the face of the brand, the primary target of the attack, and the one who would ultimately have to walk out there and bear the brutal brunt of the impending disaster. Beyond her own survival and reputation, Hope felt a profound, agonizing sorrow for Deke Sharp. Deke had poured his entire soul into these designs, working under impossible, grueling deadlines and immense psychological pressure to prove his worth to a skeptical fashion industry. He had fought hard to overcome his past mistakes, utilizing this golden opportunity to showcase his undeniable, raw talent. To see his masterpieces reduced to unrecognizable scraps of cloth was an artistic tragedy of the highest order. Hope knew that discovering this sabotage would absolutely devastate Deke, potentially derailing the immense personal and professional progress he had made. The collateral damage of the escalating Forrester-Logan war was spreading rapidly, claiming innocent victims and destroying dreams in its destructive wake. The digital clock on the monitor flashed aggressively, indicating that only 5 agonizing minutes remained until they went live to the world. 5 minutes to solve an unsolvable, catastrophic crisis. 5 minutes to wipe the tears from her pale face, mask her deep trauma, and face a world that was eager to see her either triumph against the odds or fail spectacularly. The red lipstick warning glared at her, a taunting, bloody reminder of the massive target now painted permanently on her back. Hope slowly stood up, her legs trembling violently, her heart pounding a frantic, painful rhythm against her ribs. She had to make a choice in that very second. She could succumb entirely to the terror, cancel the show, and let the faceless saboteur win, or she could find a way to fight back against the darkness that had violently invaded her sanctuary. As she stared at her pale reflection in the mirror, looking past the hateful, dripping red letters, a tiny, resilient spark of defiance ignited within her shattered spirit. The Forrester family wanted her to break. They wanted to punish her for daring to step out of line, for daring to challenge their unquestioned supremacy. Whoever had wielded those heavy scissors had intended to silence her, to force her back into quiet submission through sheer terror. But Hope Logan Spencer was a survivor. She had weathered countless emotional storms, devastating heartbreaks, and bitter betrayals. The sheer, breathtaking audacity of the attack began to fuel a desperate, burning anger that slowly, steadily began to override her blinding panic. Hope realized with absolute clarity that the war had truly begun, and there was absolutely no retreating to the safety of the past. The slashed fabrics and the lipstick warning were the violent opening salvos in a conflict that would forever alter the landscape of the Los Angeles fashion world. She would have to gather the shredded pieces of her courage, immediately alert Katie and Liam, and face the chaotic music. The Hope by Logan launch might not go as planned, and the road ahead was paved with danger, but she refused to let a coward hiding in the shadows dictate her destiny. The trauma of this moment would leave a lasting, painful scar, a constant, chilling reminder that in the ruthless, cutthroat game of high, fashion, and family dynasties, traitors truly had no place to hide, but they could still choose to stand, fight, and redefine their own legacy.